Imagine standing outside in the cold Chicago winter. No coat, no food, no hope. And the only warmth in the world comes from a stranger who has almost nothing herself. What would you do? Welcome to Storytales, the channel where real human stories remind us that kindness still exists in this world. If you're new here, welcome, friend. We're so glad you're here. And if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button right now and ring the bell, because stories like this one, you don't want to miss them. Now, before we go any further, drop a comment and tell me, where are you watching from right now? What city? What country? Let's see how far Storytales has reached today. All right, now let's get into it, because this story, if you don't watch it all the way to the end, you will not believe what happens. Let's go. It was a Tuesday morning in November, one of those gray Chicago mornings where the sky looks like it forgot to wake up. Sarah Mitchell was 29 years old. She worked double shifts at a small diner called Maple Corner Cafe on the south side of Chicago. 6 days a week, on her feet for 10, sometimes 12 hours, smiling at strangers, refilling coffee, carrying plates. And at the end of every shift, she'd count her tips on the bus ride home and wonder if it would be enough to cover rent, groceries, and her mother's medication. It usually wasn't. Sarah lived in a small one-bedroom apartment that she shared with her younger brother Danny, who was 18 and trying to get through community college. Their mom, Patricia, had been battling kidney disease for 2 years. Medical bills had swallowed their savings whole. But Sarah never complained, not once. She'd wake up before the sun, put on that blue uniform, tie her hair back, and go serve the world with a smile that never looked tired, even when she was absolutely exhausted inside. Now, pause for a second, because I want to ask you something. Have you ever been at a point in your life where you gave everything you had and still felt like it wasn't enough? If yes, put a heart in the comments, because this story, it's for you. That particular November morning, Sarah arrived at Maple Corner Cafe at 6 a.m. She was wearing her only winter jacket, a thin gray thing that wasn't really built for Chicago weather. As she turned the corner toward the staff entrance, she almost stepped on something. Or rather, someone. A man was sitting on the ground, leaning against the brick wall of the diner. He looked to be in his mid-50s. His clothes were torn and dirty, his shoes had holes in them, and he was shaking. Not dramatically, just quietly shaking, the way people do when the cold has been in their bones for too long. Sarah stopped. She looked at him. He looked up at her and quickly looked away, like he was ashamed to be seen. "Sir, are you okay?" she asked. He shook his head slowly. "I'm fine, miss. Sorry to be in your way." Sarah looked around. The street was empty. No one else was coming. No one else was going to stop. She opened her purse. Inside, she had exactly $7.40. That was everything she had until payday, 3 days away. She pulled out the $5 bill, held it for a second, thought about her mom's medication, thought about Danny's bus pass. Then she knelt down and placed the $5 gently in the man's hand. "There's a gas station 2 blocks east," she said softly. "They sell hot coffee and those little breakfast sandwiches. It's not much, but it'll warm you up." The man stared at the bill in his hand. His jaw tightened. His eyes went red. "Why?" he whispered. "You don't even know me." Sarah stood up, straightened her apron, and smiled at him the way only someone with a truly good heart can smile. "You looked cold," she said simply. "That's enough reason." And she walked inside to start her shift. She didn't think about it again. That's the thing about genuinely kind people. They don't give and then wait for something back. They give, and they move on. Sarah went back to refilling coffee, taking orders, cleaning tables. 3 days later, her manager, Gerald, called her into the back office. Sarah's stomach dropped. Gerald was not a warm man. He was the kind of manager who communicated mostly through silence and sighs. He'd been looking for a reason to cut staff for weeks. "Sarah," he said, not looking up from his papers, I'm going to need to let you go. Business is slow. I'm cutting 2 positions. Yours is one of them." Sarah stood very still. The room felt like it tilted. "Gerald, please," she said quietly. "I've worked here for 4 years. I've never been late. I've never called in sick." "I know," he said, and he actually looked sorry. "But the numbers don't work, Sarah. I'm sorry." She walked out of that diner into the cold November air, and she sat on the bus, and she did not cry. Not yet. She stared out the window at the gray city, and she thought, what do I do now? Okay, I need to stop here for a second, because I know some of you are feeling this right now. Have you ever lost something you really needed? A job, an opportunity, something you worked so hard for? Tell me about it in the comments. Or just tell me where you're watching from. Knowing you're out there makes every story worth telling. Yellow. All right, now let's get into it. Because this story, if you don't watch it all the way to the end, you will not believe what happens. Let's go. It was the next few weeks were brutal. Sarah applied to 12 different restaurants and diners. She got 3 callbacks, 2 no-shows, 1 offer, 8 hours a week, minimum wage, no benefits. She took it. She also started selling things on Facebook Marketplace, old clothes, books, a little TV she'd had since college. She never told her mother how bad it was. Every evening, she'd sit with Patricia and talk about the neighbors, the weather, a funny story from the day. Anything but the truth. Danny knew. He offered to drop out of school and get a full-time job. Sarah looked at him with the most serious expression she'd ever seen on her face. "If you drop out," she said, "I will be genuinely upset. You stay in school. I'll figure this out. I always do." It was now the 3rd week of December. Christmas was coming, and Sarah had $11 in her account. She was walking home from her part-time shift when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Is this Sarah Mitchell?" "Yes." "My name is Thomas Webb. You may not remember me, but about 6 weeks ago, you gave me $5 outside a diner on the south side of Chicago." Sarah froze on the sidewalk. "I remember," she said slowly. "I need to tell you something," the man said. His voice was calm, steady, warm. "I wasn't always homeless. I ran a logistics company for 22 years. Then I lost my wife, and I lost myself. I spent 3 years on the street. I completely gave up." He paused. "And then a young woman knelt down next to me in the cold and gave me her last few dollars and told me the only reason was that I looked cold." Another pause. "I cried for an hour after you walked inside, and then something shifted, something I can't explain. I called my brother that day for the first time in 3 years. He came and picked me up. I went to therapy, I got clean, and I got back on my feet. And last month, I got a job at my old company as a consultant." Sarah was standing completely still on the sidewalk. People were walking past her. The city was noisy, but all she could hear was Thomas's voice. "I've been trying to find you for weeks," he said. "Your old manager, Gerald, he felt terrible about letting you go. He told me where I might be able to reach you. Sarah, I want to help you, not because I owe you, but because you reminded me that human beings are worth something, and you deserve to know that." Thomas Webb was not a billionaire, but he was a man who had rebuilt himself from nothing, and he had connections. He referred Sarah to a hiring manager at a corporate catering company that handled events across Chicago, a company that was expanding fast and needed people with real work ethic and heart. Sarah got an interview, then a second interview, then a job offer, full-time, benefits, a real salary, 3 times what she'd ever made at Maple Corner Cafe. She started in January. By February, her mother's medical bills were under control. By March, Danny had his bus pass, his textbooks, and a part-time job he liked. By April, Sarah moved her family into a slightly bigger apartment, one with heat that actually worked. And every now and then, on a cold morning in Chicago,
Sarah still stops when she sees someone sitting on the ground. She still asks, "Are you okay?" Not because she's waiting for a miracle, but because that's just who she is. Thomas and Sarah still keep in touch. He came to her mother's birthday dinner last summer. Patricia made her her famous peach cobbler. He said it was the best thing he'd ever eaten. And Sarah, she laughed that laugh of hers, the one that's never tired. You know what this story taught me? That kindness doesn't ask, "Can I afford this?" It asks, "Does this person need it?" Sarah had $7.40 to her name, and she still gave. That's not just kindness, that's courage. Now, before you go, I want to know your story. Has someone ever shown you unexpected kindness when you needed it most? Or have you been the one to give without expecting?